Marcus Johnson, the CEO of Liberty Financial, stood at the counter with a withdrawal slip for $500,000 in front of him. His calm, controlled demeanor barely hinted at the storm brewing beneath the surface. The sleek, modern bank lobby was buzzing with the sound of everyday transactions, but something felt off, suspicious eyes watching him, the subtle shift in the air. He slid the slip to the teller, his hands steady, but as soon as the woman glanced at the amount, her smile faltered, a brief pause, her eyes darted to the senior teller beside her, and then came the words that cut through the air, "That's a lot of money for someone like you." His heart skipped, but he didn't flinch. This wasn't just about withdrawing his own money, this was about something deeper, something he had seen creeping through the cracks of this institution for years. He had built this company from the ground up, from the teller window to the CEO's office. He knew what he deserved, but here he was, treated like a stranger in his own bank. The teller hesitated, whispering to the others. Their whispers grew louder, the judgment thicker, and then came the command that would change everything: "We don't give cash to frauds and people like you." The words hit like a slap, but Marcus didn't shout. He didn't lose his temper. He stood tall, his voice unwavering, though the weight of those words pressed down on him. This was his bank, his employees, and they had just crossed a line. What happens next will shake you to the core. Subscribe to Real Life Stories New for the full story and the shocking aftermath. Marcus Johnson had been in the banking business for over 20 years. He had climbed his way from the bottom, starting as a teller, working his way up to branch manager, regional director, and eventually CEO of Liberty Financial. He had fought through doubts, prejudice, and countless obstacles to get to where he was, but nothing could have prepared him for the humiliation he would face today. Standing at the counter in the bank's flagship branch, Marcus was calm. He had every right to withdraw $500,000 from his account, it was his money, he had earned it. But as soon as he handed the withdrawal slip to the teller, her smile faltered. Her eyes flicked between the slip and his face, a slight hesitation. That's when he knew something wasn't right. "That's a lot of money for someone like you," the teller said, her voice barely audible but sharp enough to cut through the air. Marcus felt a tightness in his chest, but he didn't react. He had been through worse, he had heard those words before. It wasn't just about the money, it was about him, his skin color, the judgment that came with it. "I'm simply withdrawing my own money," he said, keeping his tone steady. He didn't raise his voice, he didn't need to. The teller looked at him again and then to the senior teller, Greg, who had overheard. Greg's eyes narrowed. "Is there a problem here?" he asked, his tone dripping with condescension. Marcus could feel the eyes of the other customers on him now. Whispers rippled through the air. Some customers had stopped what they were doing, turning to watch. They could sense it, the tension was thick, like the air before a storm. "I've provided all my identification. I don't need to explain why I'm withdrawing my money," Marcus replied, his voice calm, unwavering. But there was an edge now, a sharpness that made the other customers uneasy. "That's a large sum, and it's not our policy to give cash to frauds and people like you," Greg sneered, making sure everyone around him could hear. "Excuse me?" Marcus's voice was a low growl, but his posture never changed. He stood tall, unshaken, the weight of his words pressing down on the bank staff. A quiet wave of disbelief washed over the room. Some customers shifted uncomfortably in their seats, others pulled out their phones to record the confrontation. The manager, Sandra Miller, stepped forward. She had been watching from the back, her gaze calculating. She approached Marcus with the practiced steps of someone who had never been questioned in her life. "Sir, I'm afraid we can't process this transaction without further verification," Sandra said, her voice sweet but thick with judgment. "This amount seems unusual for someone like you." Marcus's heart sank. There it was again, someone like you. The words that had followed him his entire life. No matter how high he climbed, his skin color, his presence, had always been the issue. Always. He could feel the anger rising within him, but he refused to let it control him. He had worked too hard to get here. "No, there's no confusion here," Marcus said, his voice firm. "I've been a customer of this bank for years. I'm entitled to withdraw my own money." But Sandra wasn't done. She leaned in closer, her eyes scanning him like he was a problem to be solved. "Do you mind telling us where this money came from? A settlement, perhaps? An inheritance?" The implication was clear: there was no way a black man could have this kind of money unless it was some fluke. The assumption hit Marcus like a slap in the face, but he refused to show it. "No," he replied, keeping his composure. "I don't need to explain myself." Sandra's smile was tight. She looked at Greg, then back at Marcus. The tension in the room was building. "Security," she said, her voice cold and final. "Escort him out." The security guards, large men in uniforms, moved toward him. Marcus didn't flinch. He didn't back down. He wasn't about to let this happen. As the guard reached out to grab his arm, Marcus reached into his pocket, slowly pulling out his phone. The moment he dialed the number, everything changed. "Yes, hello. This is Marcus Johnson. I'm at the downtown branch of Liberty Financial, and I'm being physically removed from the premises for attempting to withdraw my own money," he said calmly into the phone. The confusion was immediate. The guard who had been ready to pull him out hesitated. Sandra's face turned pale as she realized what was happening. "You called him?" Sandra demanded. "Put that phone away now." But Marcus didn't. He kept his cool. "Yes, Michael. I'm still at the downtown branch. They're refusing my transaction and attempting to remove me physically." "Michael." Sandra's voice trembled now, the realization hitting her hard. Michael Roberts, the head of operations for Liberty Financial, was one of the most powerful people in the bank. Marcus had his direct number. Marcus continued, his voice steady, "Yes, Michael, I need you here immediately. They're physically restraining me." The moment Sandra heard that, her expression went from condescension to panic. She glanced at Greg and Jason, who were standing behind her, and saw the fear in their eyes. The bank lobby, once bustling with energy, was now eerily silent except for the muffled sound of Marcus's calm voice on the phone. "What's going on?" Sandra stammered, her confidence completely shattered. Moments later, Michael Roberts burst through the door. His presence was commanding, his face a mask of authority. He didn't even look at Sandra, his gaze was fixed on Marcus. "Release him now," Michael said, his voice booming across the lobby. The security guard stepped back immediately. The tension in the room was thick as everyone stood frozen in place. Sandra's face drained of color. She knew exactly who Marcus was now. "Marcus, I am so sorry this happened," Michael said, turning to him with a mixture of regret and respect. He then turned back to Sandra and the others. "You're all fired, effective immediately. Your actions today are completely unacceptable." Sandra's mouth opened, but no words came out. Greg's face went pale, his knees shaking. Jason stood frozen, his smirk from earlier replaced by a look of horror. "Your actions today have proven that you are unfit to work at Liberty Financial," Michael continued, his voice icy. "And you will face the consequences. This is not just a matter of policy, it's a matter of integrity, dignity, and respect." As Sandra and the others were escorted out, Marcus stood tall, the weight of the moment sinking in. He had faced humiliation, judgment, and discrimination, but in the end, he had won. He had used his strength, his resolve, and his position to change the narrative. The bank would never be the same again. The lesson was clear: discrimination had no place here, and anyone who perpetuated it would face the consequences. The story didn't end with a single victory, it was a message that would echo through the halls of Liberty Financial for years to come. The power of standing up for what's right cannot be underestimated. As the dust settled in the Liberty Financial lobby, Marcus stood tall, his expression calm but his heart heavy with the weight of the moment. The harsh reality of what had just happened still lingered in the air. He had been humiliated, judged, and nearly thrown out of his own bank simply because of the color of his skin. Yet in the end, he had turned the situation on its head, not through anger or retaliation, but by simply refusing to let injustice stand. As Sandra and her team were escorted out, Marcus felt the full weight of the lesson that had unfolded before him. It wasn't just about the victory or even the punishment they faced, it was about the change he had started. Marcus had always known that leadership meant making hard decisions, but today it had become clear real leadership means standing firm in the face of discrimination, using your position to dismantle the systems that allow it to thrive. He wasn't just the CEO of Liberty Financial anymore. He was now the symbol of resilience and justice, a reminder that no matter where you stand in life, the truth has the power to change everything. As the doors closed behind Sandra and the others, the bank felt different. Marcus knew the path ahead wouldn't be easy. Change never is. But he was ready. He had always been ready. It was time for Liberty Financial to rise above the shadows of prejudice and become a place where every person, no matter their skin color, felt valued. If you've been inspired by Marcus's story and want to see more real-life tales of courage and change, don't forget to hit like, share this video, and help Narrative Tales.